Welcome. I'm Dr. Penny Stack,
I'm April Tate.
and we are from the Educate to Advocate podcast.
I am with Drops of Hope Consulting. I work with families of special needs students. We do a lot of work within the school system and working to advocate for services and different accommodations for our students.
And I'm with Dyslexia Center of Tulsa, where we used evidence-based, team-based therapy services, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and teachers to work with children who may have difficulty with learning or reading because of dyslexia. So let's jump into our topic today.
Sure.
So our topic today is basically failing with grace, right? When I think about when my children were younger, and right now your children are at that stage, and all we want to do is make them successful in
Right.
everything they do.
Everything is based around
Success, right? And there is so much out there about how to provide activities to ensure our children are successful, how to communicate them, good words to use, all these experiences. But there is not a lot out there that talks about the value of letting your child fail, providing opportunities for them to fail, and then how do you pull out of it?
because I don't think that's valued.
Right.
It's not valued today.
I don't
It's
think
important.
it is.
It is
important. For when you see someone's success, if you pull the curtain back,
Oh.
they have failed so many times. That movie reel that you see on Facebook? Like my daughter says, your Facebook life and then your real life.
Real life, yeah.
Right? So there is that. There's this movie reel that we compare somebody else's movie reel to ours, and we assume that we are not living up to it. But that success that they're showing, if you really talk to them and got down to it, they would probably tell you many failures along the way or bumps in the road, right?
Sure.
So how do we, when we talk about educating to advocate, right? Our vision and empowering our children and reaching out to their community, whether that be their teachers, their coaches, and everybody comes together to work together for our child to be successful. How do we kind of pass that baton to our child? Because we will not be in college with our children.
No.
We
No.
might. Some parents might, right?
Not me.
I've thought about it, right?
I might be living near, but I won't be there in.
No, I seriously wanted to take the classes with my
Oh.
daughter. Yeah.
Well, that would be fun.
Yeah. She was taking a law class. Law's not her major, but she was taking a law class. And I cannot remember the name of the class, but it's when she would develop an opening statement and a closing statement,
Oh, fun.
and kind of do an argument in court. I'm like, I want to
I
enroll.
want to do that.
She's like, no, mom, no.
Stay
right?
away.
Right. But sidebar, we always get off on sidebars.
Always.
That's like our worst.
That's our thing.
Yeah, but they're fun. Okay. Back on track. How do we set them up for failure? Like, I can think of countless stories, but I think my earliest memory of being mindful to allow my daughter to fail, it backfired. It was the funniest memory. So this is before I really knew she had dyslexia, understood that a lot of characteristics I would see, like the meltdowns, was due to the challenge I was putting in front of her and not a behavior.
Right.
And so just to clarify, so everyone's on the same page, we hear the word behavior a lot. And in my mind, and this is my personal definition, behavior is purposeful. A child knows better, they do it anyway. A characteristic is when you see an undesirable trait that comes out, but it's not due to being naughty.
Right. It's not, I want to do this. I'm
Right.
trying to make someone mad.
It is their way of saying, this is so infinitely hard. I rather do this and get in trouble for it because that's easier. Which is a whole nother light and a different way to handle it. So I remember she would bring home study guides. It's like second or third grade, or, sight words, whatever it was she needed to study. And we would sit on the couch, the routine. You would study it. Then the fight would ensue. I don't want to, the meltdowns. You're going to do it. Do your work. Sit down. I mean, I wasn't yelling at her, but
right.
but it's
you
that
were intent on this is what's
yes,
going to
it's that
happen.
you've got to stick to it. You've got to dig deep. All the wrong things that you should be doing with somebody who has dyslexia, by the way, right? And I've done them all. Well, I really wanted to teach her the importance of studying. And one night, the same thing came up. We go to read a study guide. She has a meltdown. Doesn't want to do it. And I had had enough, right? Because I'm trying so hard. She needs to want this more than I do. Like, that's where my head was at the time. Like I said, all the wrong things. I did them all.
It happens.
And then I said, you know what? Suffer the consequences. If she fails a quiz in 3rd grade, it will not keep her from getting into Harvard. Like, I had to really think, what was the battle worth having here?
Right.
And so I thought, great, she won't study. Not that she, yeah, she wouldn't study. Yeah, that's how bad of a parent I was. She wouldn't study. Instead of saying she's crying for help, it was, great, you won't study? I'm good with that. You're going to fail the test? I'm good with that. You'll see how this all works out in the wash. Didn't give it another thought. The next day I go to pick her up from school, and I must have picked her up early. I don't know what happened, but it was a school where they had 1 room per grade. It was a very small school, and there was a really long hallway. I mean, there was 1 hallway. So I'm at the principal's office, just walking out of the principal's office, or whatever
Like
office that is where you sign your
entrance
kids
area,
out.
yeah,
Right.
admin office.
And I started walking down to her class, because this is when they're still little, and they love it when you come down to their class, right? And she's tiny to begin with, like physically tiny. So she was like a little speck in my memory down this long hallway. Think about Vantage and how things get smaller. She's the only one in the hallway, and her room is at the very end, and I'm at the other end. She comes bursting out of that room with a piece of paper in her hand, like so happy.
Oh, no.
Like probably the happiest I've seen her in her whole life. Running full speed ahead. Like I had to brace myself to catch her or she'd have knocked me over, right? Waving this paper. Why?
Oh, no.
Because she got a perfect grade. And I said, that is not how that was supposed to work. Right? So that failed me. But there are important times you need to have that balance between letting your child fail and encouraging them to try harder.
Sure. And it's definitely a balance, because I feel like in today's society, there's so much pressure on being perfect and, getting the grade and getting on the sports team and having the just right look and, all of the things. But it all boils down to this little kid, and what's playing over and over in my mind is my 7-year-old son, who was working with someone on a Zoom call, and he was afraid to do the activity because he didn't want it to affect his grade, because he wasn't confident in what he was going to be doing. And so I could see that, he was hesitant, and I could see it, and I could see a little bit of the worry. And he was like, and I was just kind of waiting, like sitting back to see what he was going to do. And then finally he got up the nerve to say, is this going to affect my grade? And I was like, no, it's not going to affect your grade.
Crazy.
And the person on the Zoom call was like, no, absolutely not. And then you could just see it like melt off of him. And so to me, it is a really interesting balance, because you want to set them up to succeed. You want to set them up to have failure experiences, but you want to do it in a way that's not going to wreck their little
Well,
world.
here's the key. It's okay to set them up for failure experience, but you have to have a plan of how do you
How do we
help
put
them
these pieces
cope.
back together?
That's where the learning begins. So I remember when we first moved to Tulsa and we were looking at a variety of schools. There is a school in Tulsa that wears the exact same uniform that my daughter wore at her old school.
Oh,
So based on the uniform, that's the school she wanted to go
of
to.
course. It's comfortable.
And whatever opportunity she wanted to try, always let her try. It didn't matter to me, right? And so I'm like, okay, great, let's apply. And this was a school that you had to apply to. She was in 5th grade. You had to interview at 5th grade, take exams. It was
Wow.
it was quite rigorous.
Mhm.
And I thought, what a great opportunity, because if she gets in, great. But if she doesn't, this is a prelude to college.
Mhm.
Because we don't all get into the college of our choice.
True.
And what happens when you're told no? Like, I was trying to reflect back on her life. Has she ever actually been denied?
Hmm.
At that age, probably not. She wanted to go in Girl Scouts, went in Girl Scouts. Like, has she ever been told no in a big way?
Right.
So I thought, great. So she had to get her own letters of recommendation. She had to sit for interviews. She had to take tests. She went through the whole thing. I let her go through the whole thing, knowing this may not pan out.
Right.
We get the call.
Hmm.
Did not pan out.
Oh, no.
Didn't get accepted, right? And so I was visiting with another parent, and they were telling me, well, just tell her you changed your mind and that you didn't want her to go. I'm like, oh no.
No.
Like, I got so excited. I said, this is the moment.
Yeah.
This is the moment I'm going to embrace and teach her how to fail with grace,
Mhm.
right? Because when you don't get in, you think it's a personal failure, right? I
Right.
didn't do good enough. I'm not good enough. And so I remember telling her the news, and it was heart-wrenching.
Sure.
You know, she took it very hard. And, we talked about that not everything is always the best fit.
Mhm.
And what are your other choices? And what is not plan B, but what could be another opportunity, right? Because
Right.
sometimes plan B makes it feel like
This isn't as good.
it's
This is a consolation.
yes, that's the word,
Mhm.
consolation, right? And it doesn't have to be. And that was very powerful watching that moment, because then I saw as she got older handling disappointment. I mean, yeah, we all get sad, but it
Sure.
was like, no big deal. I'm just going to go do this. And I loved that for
Mm.
her.
Yeah, that's amazing. That is a great opportunity to teach your kid. We haven't had a lot of those opportunities in our little lifetime yet.
Exactly. And the most recent one, and the reason why I wanted to share this on the podcast or video cast, or I don't even know the words anymore, right?
I don't know.
But this is what sparked this as being
I
a
forget this is
topic.
happening.
Yeah, I'm just not looking at the camera, because I look at it, I'm like, wow, they can actually see us, right? So yeah. You can tell we're still new at this, right? So my daughter just wrapped up her first semester at school,
Mm,
and she made the dean's list.
I was so
I
excited.
was too, right? And of course, we're all very proud of her. We had no expectation. We just wanted her to go and experience the process. When you have a child, and any parent, I'm sure, can relate to this, when your child's gone off to college, you're just wanting the best for them, whatever that might
Sure.
look like. They make good choices. They pass all their classes. Like, I'm not a dean's list type of girl. I'm just like, just pass,
Mm,
if you can. I mean, I'm not going to put these high expectations and and make it a situation where it stresses her out, right? And we've always been a very open about this. But what surprised me was, over the winter break, she shared with me that she wasn't really a fan of college. And the only
oh,
reason she went was because, well, I thought this was a good reason, but I'm biased, was because she knew she needed to support herself and earn a living. Like, okay, that's a good reason. But the other thing she said just broke my heart. And that was, I worked really hard because I didn't want to disappoint you. And
oh,
I thought, oh, am I that rough? Like, and I think about, I've never ever said you have to,
right.
but based on what I do in my life, and children see everything we do, it was a self-imposed expectation that if I don't perform at a certain level, I will disappoint mom,
Right.
right? And as a child, I can see how terrifying that is,
Mhm.
because that's your whole world, or your parents. So it was interesting. That moment kind of came and went. We talked about it, and then the new semester starting, right? And she had shared with me that she's taking a math class, and a little kind of apprehensive. Math is not her favorite subject. And I really thought about that and remembered her telling me how disappointed that she thought I might be. And I thought, here we go. And I called her and I said, I really need you to know something. And she said, what? And I said, remember, I flunked algebra. Okay, brace yourselves, everyone. This is not public knowledge, but it's about to be. I may as well just lay it all out
Go
there,
right ahead. Safe
right?
space.
Yeah. So I flunked college algebra 6 times. And I'm going to continue to tell you, I flunked chemistry 3 times, the same chemistry, and physics 3 times as well. It took me 10 years of college to get my 4-year degree.
Well, you went back and you went back and you went back.
And
If
we're back
I failed math once, I don't know that I would have had the bravery to go
to go
back
back.
and do it again
Yeah.
or again
Right.
or again.
Right.
So that's incredible.
And, I also flunked out of college twice, right? My freshman year, I think it was my first or second semester. Like, she's already leaps and bounds beyond where I was at that age. Trust me. That's a whole nother podcast. But
She's had so much support.
yeah, so I talked to her about that. And I said, the reason I bring that up to you is because you need to know, before you get into school, before the semester really starts, if you fail math, it is
It's
so
okay.
okay. I said, this is a safe space, no judgment. I will pay for you to take it as many times as you want. I said, you need to know that I'm okay with that. Because when I think about the isolation these kids are in with COVID, being far away from home, the fragility of their mental health, and all the other possibilities that she can reach out to cope. Drugs,
Mhm.
alcohol, what's that word I'm looking for? Uh, rebellious behavior, whatever. I can't that's not the word, but you get the point.
Mhm.
When I think about all these things that she could possibly do to mask not disappointing me,
Right.
I want to get in front of that
Sure.
and let her know it is totally okay. And you know why it's okay?
Why?
Because and I'm not saying this in a bragging way in any means. When I look back at my academic life, I can also now say I have a doctorate degree,
Sure.
right?
That is a
And
huge
that
accomplishment.
but if you would have told me when I was getting kicked out of school, like
That
that
was
very
gonna
day,
happen.
both days, that this would ever happen, I remember the first time I got kicked out of school, calling my mother and crying because I said, "The school's criteria to get through this degree is based on when I started," and I'm not gonna tell you the year because 'cause you'll know my age. "But if I have to start over now, I'm gonna have to take college algebra." I said, "I can't pass it. I will never finish school." I remember that
Oh,
moment. And I I always love to share this story because that's the moment, but it's not where your journey has to end,
right.
right? And I felt like she needed a verbal public acknowledgement, meaning between her and I, that I want you to be you.
Mhm.
You don't have to be this false expectation of what I inadvertently imposed on you and you interpreted it that way or what society wants.
Sure.
You find your own way.
Mhm.
And if you're in college for a couple of years and it doesn't work, what will like I'm totally cool with that because I want our children to be who they want to be and not fit into some box that doesn't work.
Right. Right. No, I agree. That's all very powerful.
And I think a lot of kids get this through sports, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. She wasn't somebody that was into sports a lot, right? I mean, she swam, but it never occurred to her. Like, she swam because she enjoyed it. It wasn't one of those things where, "Oh, you have to place. I'm just in the pool having a good time," right?
Right.
Right? So it never she was real little and it didn't matter, right? But these lessons have to come, and as parents, I can tell you how I mean, I could feel it to where I physically hurt when I knew I was sending her in the path of failure,
It's hard.
right? I remember thinking in 7th grade and 8th grade, let her fail now before high school grades make a difference,
Right. I
right?
understand.
I kept thinking, purposely make opportunity for her to fail because the more she fails, the more independent she'll be later and the better choices she'll make later. And the choices will be based on this didn't work. This is a better path for me,
Mhm.
right? And so it's counterintuitive
It is.
to purposely set up failure.
Mhm. Yeah, so again, we're not quite in those places in life just yet, but we do, as part of our morning warm up, we do a journal. And it is, I'm not going to say the brand because I don't know how that works, but it's a specific type of journal that works on the growth mindset.
I love this. You shared this with me before.
Did I?
Yes, yes. I'm so glad you're talking about it right now.
It's really important because, I see our kids, mine specifically, that my youngest to the nth degree, he gets so frustrated with himself so quickly. And it's all about teaching the child that learning is failing and failing is learning. You have to go through that
Absolutely.
failure process. And so every time he gets mad, it's like a mantra in our house. Failing is learning. And, I know that
Do
they
you get the
hate me.
eye
They
rolls?
don't. They're really sweet. But I know inside it's happening. And if it's not, sometimes it's happening to myself. Like
That's
I am
awesome.
involuntarily rolling my eyes as I'm telling them these, life changing pieces of wisdom that I wish that I had ingrained in me. Because even as an adult, I don't do failure well. I work really hard to keep it together and
Well, it never
do
feels good. I'm not saying it's gonna
no.
feel good,
No,
no.
but it's not even so much about feeling it, but acknowledging, "Man, I really screwed that up. What can I learn from that situation?" And that's what I'm trying right now to really impart to them is everybody fails. everybody screws up. It doesn't look no, it doesn't matter what little Timmy down the street does and how wonderful he is and what team he's on and, all of these expectations that are on our smallest kids, which I think is a little wacko
There's so
sometimes.
many expectations on
Mhm.
children. It almost seems like every generation,
More and more.
more and more, and it happens younger and younger.
Yes. Well, and, I feel like that's been a real blessing that's come out of our time homeschooling is that we are trying really hard to just kind of hit the reset button and say, hey, you know what? If you screw up, you screw up. And, you know, it is what it is. We learn from it and we move on. And it's my hope that I'm teaching them that, man, we messed up on that test. Next time we need to do X, Y, and Z, or, some of just to be ready for some of those failures and those natural consequences. Hopefully, if I go down that path, they don't come running down the hall with their perfect
Yeah,
paper.
that was such a huge backfire. I was like, "Oh, man." Like,
I can visualize that. I can see it happen.
I was like, and she remembers that till this day because when I tell her to study, she's like, "Why? I get A's." Like, she still reminds me of that moment.
That's
I'm like,
hilarious.
it is hilarious, right? And these little beings, they aren't us.
Mm-mm.
They are not us. They will not be us. Their experiences will be different. Watching them become their own person, if you are lucky enough to have that wisdom when they're still young and allow that and facilitate that, I think that's a huge jumpstart. I didn't catch on to that till a little later.
Well, who knows if
right?
it sticks?
Yeah.
It's my idea that you just keep throwing it at them and eventually something will
And they do.
stick.
My daughter's third grade reading teacher gave me the best advice ever, and I still have it running through my head. And it was just like a by the way thing. And she said, she listens to you.
Oh,
And
what?
yeah, I'm like, can I record that? And I didn't really understand what she was saying. She goes, she tells me, in class every day things that you tell her, like the good things, not, not things that you don't want your kids to say at school, right? But I think I started thinking about that a lot, especially when she was getting the preteens and then teen years, and you're just like holding your breath.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept thinking she is listening to me. And now that she's in college, I'm like, oh wow, she really is.
did.
So, going back to like that failure in grace, when I was doing my research, I did read some research that talked about there is a high percentage of entrepreneurs who have dyslexia or learning differences versus people who work in corporate jobs. People that work in corporate jobs tend to stay in corporate jobs for a long length of time. And when you look back on their lifetime of their resume, they only have a few corporate jobs. But people who have dyslexia or learning differences are typically entrepreneurs, or they've only stayed places for a short amount of time and they've moved on and they've got many, many, many jobs for shorter periods. Like, because I like that startup, that creativity, and then they get bored and they move on.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I think about some entrepreneurs that I just know personally, I know they have failed many times. And I look at them now, they're either very well off and they have this amazing family unit, but success has spilt over in many parts of their lives, but they will be the first ones to tell you the rag to riches story.
Sure.
Or the struggles, and they wear them with a badge of honor. And I read on Facebook, I wish I would have remembered the quote because it was one of my friends who I look up to who's an entrepreneur. And the quote he wrote, I wish I could remember exactly, but it was basically like, embrace your failures because those will be the biggest lessons you learn in life.
Yes.
And as we are teaching our children to fail, right? To fail with grace, it is great to be that role model for them, right? Like I remember I've prepared for job interviews, worked hard to get the job I wanted, and then it never was offered to me.
Right.
And going home with that and saying,
Ugh,
I'm bummed. I was a little more than bummed, right? Like it was a lot more dramatic than that. But being real about that with my family,
sure.
So they can see, oh, yeah, everyone's not perfect and it's okay to fail. And even as teachers or educators or therapists, when we make mistakes in front of the kids we're in front of, it's awesome. First of all, they love it.
I'm
right?
sure they do.
They get so excited and they love pointing it out.
Oh, yeah.
And roll with it. and problem solve with them. How do you get through it? That's a great role model right there.
Sure. So we've done a lot of OT work with my oldest son, and that's something that they've
OT's occupational therapy.
yes, occupational therapy, with my oldest son, and one of the things that they constantly model is, you know, being an example. So, how was your day today? Mine was really good because X, Y, and Z happened. But I'll tell you what, this part of my day was really bad. X, Y, and Z happened, and it really upset me, and I had a hard time getting over it. But now you're with me, and I feel a lot better. How was your day? And that opens the whole door for them to say, here were the good parts, here were the bad parts. And I'm just really glad that we're together now, and it
It
made it
is.
all better.
I'm glad you brought that up. When my daughter was in elementary school, I used to pick her up and ask her how her day was. Okay.
Oh,
What'd you learn today? Nothing.
yep.
Well, this went
Great.
on
That's what
for
mine says.
who knows
Great.
how long, right? And I'm thinking, you have to be doing something. You're there 6 hours a day. So then I changed the question
Hmm.
and I would say, so what was the favorite part of your day? So it wasn't how was your day or what you did. What was the favorite part of your day? Because what was happening was she was getting in my car and all I heard was all the bad things.
Oh, see, we didn't hear anything.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm done hearing all the bad things, right? I'm sure they're happening, but like I was
We want some
tired
good
too.
too.
At the end of the day, I
Yeah.
do not want to hear this, right? And so I would ask what the favorite thing was, and various things would come up. But then there came a time where it was there. I didn't have a favorite thing. Like, how do you answer that, right? So I would say, okay, you had lunch today, you hung out with your friends at recess, you went to science and math. Of those 4 things, which was better than the other?
Oh, that's a good one.
Like, just
Just
teaching
pulling it out of them. Yeah.
how to put things in perspective, right? That you woke up this morning, the sunset was amazing. Was that the best part of your day? The funny thing was, this started in elementary school. Now, and for years, she will ask me that question.
Oh, I love that she asks you.
Yes, yes, yes. And so sometimes I have to make stuff up because I can't think of anything.
Right.
But she'll call me on it.
That grocery
And
store
so,
trip was
yeah. So
amazing.
parents, here's the best answer when you can't think of anything. The best part of my day was when I got to hang out with you. Like you
Oh,
can't lose.
you can't lose, but I will tell you, my children are slick. And this is their answer always. What was your favorite part of the day? Seeing you.
You know what? Take it as a win.
I really want to know about their day, and that's all they'll give me.
Take
What
it
did
as
you
a win.
learn? I forgot. What? How was your day? Great. I mean, these are our conversations. So we did have to start like, well, here's what I did. This is what was great. And I mean, you're right. Sometimes you have to really dig. Like the dishwasher unloaded, extra quickly today. It was fantastic. And
Exactly.
they're like,
You did not fall off the yoga ball today.
or these fancy chairs that I'm really worried about.
Exactly. Like we're holding on for dear life. We're in these chairs.
Like
I'm
a
going to show
kickstand
them.
going on right now.
Yeah, so I'm going to show them my chair. So we're in these really slick orange chairs that are my favorite.
They're
I love the
gorgeous.
color, but they are super slick. Do you see these little things here? We're holding on to them for dear life. Now, if we were just doing a regular podcast, we would be in sweatpants and comfy clothes,
Mhm.
yoga clothes, no makeup, hair in a scrunchy thing, probably sitting in a more comfortable chair.
For sure. My legs would definitely be crisscross applesauce.
Right. So we're just like, I'm holding on with my right hand and then I'm bracing myself on the table with
got
my
a-
left
I've
hand.
got a whole leg out here just like
Yeah.
propping me up.
Yeah. So if you see us going like this,
If we start slipping.
it's a real thing.
Oh, that's funny.
Always get so distracted.
know.
What is the problem?
We
All right.
need to focus.
We need to focus.
Well, I think that some of my takeaways from today were just just the touching stories that you shared about how it's important to let our kids fail, but to just be that soft place for them to land. Like you always say, be there to talk to them and help them put the pieces back together. Understand that we don't always succeed and we have to fail to learn. It's part of the learning process and it's okay. And everybody does it. And I don't know that we really get that message to our kids very often.
Or to us.
Or to ourselves, for sure.
Right. But you were mentioning earlier that it's not easy for you to go through that failing process. And it's
No.
not easy for us to
No.
do it. And so my takeaways from our conversation today is kind of talk yourself through the counterintuitiveness and that bad gut in your feeling when you're allowing the failure process to happen.
Sure. And then
Right.
be that place, be the grace.
Have a plan though. Like don't create the failure and then just let it flounder, right?
Sure.
You have to be able to put it all back in a box and put a bow back on it. Those coping skills and
Mhm.
strategies, it's crucial for their mental health for later. They are going to face the real world. And like my husband said the other day, I don't know where he heard it. He goes, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Oh, it's true.
Exactly, right? We all have a plan until it goes completely wrong. How will they cope with it? What are their choices? Are we teaching them coping skills, or are they going to figure it out on their own and find something that might be reckless or harmful? And so to me, that's one of the biggest reasons for teaching that moment of failure so they can find a way to get through it and get back in the game.
Sure. And we can have the conversation about it. It doesn't have to be some taboo situation, man, you failed, so let's not talk about it. It's not okay. It's completely okay.
No one's perfect, right?
No one.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that is not the end of the world
Mm-mm.
or the end of their story. That is the beginning of a new direction. Where do you go from here? What's your journey? How do you want your story to end? Here's your pen. You write it.
Exactly. Exactly. I love
So
it.
anyway, we would love to hear from you. If you have any topic ideas, you have questions, you just want to shoot us an email and say hi, we'd love to hear from you. Our email address is educatetoadvocate@gmail.com.
And you can listen to our podcast anywhere that podcasts play, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and then check out our YouTube channel for our video casts. We're so happy to have you. We're so happy to connect with you. We're so happy that you can see us.
Go ahead, say excited one more time. Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.